The Eldrazi are amongst the freakiest, darkest, and most terrifying beings in all of Magic the Gathering lore. They have existed longer than any other creature or character that we've come to know so far, and surely they will outlive all of us and all of the characters that we love. These things exist beyond knowing, beyond understanding, and beyond a purely physical form. In fact, they are so mysterious that even in-universe, so much is still unknown about them. But on the other hand, we do know quite a lot, including where they're from, sort of, what their goals are, kind of, and plenty of big story events surrounding them, with really only one true question still remaining. Emrakul? Are you single? Are you looking for a good night out? I'm kind of down to clown if you are. Just hit my line. Anyhow, my desire to be grasped by Emrakul is quite great, but my desire to learn all about the Eldrazi is even greater, but just barely. So I want to invite you onto my cosmic horror deep dive as we plunge deep into the dark unknown that is the Eldrazi. What are the Eldrazi? Now, normally in my videos I just immediately jump deep into the lore, but since I love the YouTube chapter system and I really want to cover as much as I reasonably can about the Eldrazi, first I'm gonna have to break down what they actually are, their origins, and the different titans and variations of the Eldrazi that actually do exist in Magic first, and then we can get into all the crazy lore stuff with them afterwards. You see, the big Draz here are not simply monsters from some other dimension, but instead they're actually an ancient race native to the Blind Eternities, which is the chaotic space between the different planes / universes, worlds in Magic the Gathering. And this by itself is of course already the first great hint at their truly Lovecraftian inspiration, as literally they're just pulling from the same concepts as the H.P. Lovecraft creatures known as the Great Old Ones. You're probably familiar with at the very least Cthulhu, but there are actually plenty more of these guys. My favorite being Nyarlathotep, the Crawling Chaos. The Eldrazi, very much like the other iconic members of the cosmic horror genre, embody the fear and anxieties of the unknown and vastness of the universe, and the overpowering feeling that this kind of creates in all of us. So unlike most creatures with bodies, the Eldrazi actually have no true physical form that mortals such as you or I would ever understand. Despite that though, they're really provocative and kind of get the people going before then destroying their entire plane of existence in a thirst of cosmic, insatiable hunger. That is right, good person watching this. They feed on mana and life itself, consuming entire universes like I consume half a dozen donuts every Sunday morning. In fact, I literally just did that. But among these alien-like invaders, there are three most powerful titans, the greatest of all the Eldrazi, from whom the spawn actually comes. Now they each take a slightly different approach to bending the laws of physics, a very central character theme for them and their entire brood lineage. The greatest of them has to be, of course, Emrakul. She is the love of my life, the Aeons Torn and keening mother who warps biology itself. Then there is Ulamog, the Infinite Gyre, the great consumer who gobbles up entire universes better than anyone else. He's technically the weakest and smallest, but don't get it twisted, he's still super freaky and reeks a stench of rotten meat, decay, and sulfur that smells like me on a Sunday afternoon after those 24 donuts. And then there is Kozilek, who has the sickest title as the Butcher of Truth, who warps reality itself, distorting space, perception, and the structure of the world around him. Now, just to put it out there, there's actually a lot of speculation on whether other titans might exist, but my main guy, Ugin, has stated that there are only so far 3 true Eldrazi titans in the multiverse, but something kind of tells me that this might change, you know, if marketing and money in the real world become a little bit more important of a player than the key lore. Also, just to be clear, since I did just use the popularly discussed genders, the Eldrazi of course are genderless and colorless from a purely gameplay standpoint, but what makes the Eldrazi especially unsettling and really captures that great unknown aspect that they all embody is that what appears on a plane is not the Titan's real or full self. You know all those cool Titan cards that we all play with? Yeah, none of these are the actual forms of these creatures, which are much closer to concepts, really, in all honesty. Each of the titans exists outside the planes and only extends a portion of itself into reality when it starts feeding. Who can honestly probably put it best and explain this with an image? Picture a man placing his hand into some water. Inside of that are plenty of fish, you or me, and the fish in the water can only perceive the hand, woefully unaware of the full person above the surface. And in that very same way, Planeswalkers and mortals can only ever witness a part of an Eldrazi Titan. Even the lesser Eldrazi and their broods are not truly separate creatures, but physical extensions of a greater being's will and body. Oh, speaking of which, each Titan has a brute, or a subgroup that kind of stems from it based on its likeness. The Eldrazi Lineages. One of the most disturbing aspects of the Eldrazi invasion isn't just the massive titans themselves, it's all the little bugs that kind of act as their foot soldiers. They're essentially big cosmic fungus bugs, and these are their broods! Each of the 3 titans has their own lineage, and each titan's brood reflects its cosmic function. Kozilek's reality warping, Emrakul's biological manipulation, and Ulamog's consumption. Kozilek's lineage is perhaps the most visually alien of all the 3, but also it kind of feels, I don't know, the most StarCraft, if that makes sense to like 7 of you guys watching. Like, you can kind of tell if they come from the cosmic loins of Kozilek based on that little floating crown of obsidian shards that hover above their heads. Physically, Kozilek's brood tends to resemble broken imitations of animals, much like my personal drawing of animals. Very insectoid, lots of legs, a little bit skeletal-esque, you kind of get the vibe, right? And a key characteristic of the fragments of Kozilek is, just as he represents, reality distortion that they then enforce. They don't just consume the land like your typical Eldrazi spawn, they distort it into truly impossible structures. Some very iconic cards from this brood are It That Betrays, which I use because I'm evil and I like taking your stuff, or the great combo piece, Eldrazi Displacer. Emrakul herself embodies distortion, and that's something I can kind of get behind. After all, if you're a fan of the channel, you know all too well that I am Giratina from the Distortion world, and her brood is all about fun colors, leaving yellow dust that taints the entire environment, and also these cool lattice-type structures on the body. Fun little lore fact for you here. Some academics believe that this lattice structure allows Emrakul's brood to manipulate gravity, hence why they're all always floating. The more you know. And since she's the most Lovecraftian of all, in my personal opinion, tentacles are a pretty telltale sign of an Emrakul-type brute. But beyond just the brood, there are also the conscripts. You see, as a master of biology itself, Emrakul transforms others into Eldrazi, corrupting life that she encounters itself. Humans, angels, demons, and beasts, all of them bend the knee to the great tentacle. So no surprise that a ton of very iconic cards come from Emrakul, right? Like Emrakul's Messenger, or the new Pauper staple, well, new, but from MH3, Writhing Crythalis, which is a real annoyance to play against, but the same goes for some of the conscripts like Gisela, the Broken Blade, Brisela, Voice of Nightmares, and yes, even you, my dear Nulldrifter, who's so much better than Mulldrifter. Love that card. Then there is Ulamog's brood, which, to be fair, is the most straightforward, but perhaps also the most terrifying thing that I've ever damn laid my silly little eyes on. Its sole purpose is efficient planetary consumption, and they mimic his control of physical properties. Creatures of Ulamog's brood often appear kind of skeletal with icky and gross muscles and bones. The most distinctive feature is the smooth, featureless bone plate that replaces all of their faces. You know, the one. It kind of gives a little bit Alish Norn vibes. Just me. Yeah, like, these Eldrazi are all Ulamog's kin. Now, how do they see? No idea, to be honest with you. It kind of makes no sense to me. Probably magic of some sort, because these special freaks have No eyes, no ears, no sensory holes, but they still slaughter really well. Especially my goat Zul'Dok the Void Gorger here and Void Winnover. But now we finally get to venture into the tales of these titans, their broods, and what hints of their inevitable return we might have already seen. The Imprisonment. Decades before the rise of the Eldrazi crisis that we see in the Zendikar blocks and all that fun jazz, the Titans were originally discovered by 3 immensely powerful planeswalkers. The Spirit Dragon Ugin, the mighty core Lithomancer Nahiri, Stoneforge Mystic for the win, and the vampire badass and all-around very wicked blood wizard, Sorin Markov. These 3 guys uncovered the cosmic Eldrazi Titans and feared their wrath as they continued to consume planes throughout the multiverse. Think about all the awesome planes that we'll never get to visit because, well, universes beyond sets, but also because, the Eldrazi gobbled them all up. So realizing the true scale and scope of their enemy and realizing that the Eldrazi could not simply be destroyed in any conventional sense, they had to think of a way to prevent their senseless destruction in some other way. And thus, these 3 great minds devised an ambitious plan to imprison them. And to do so, they would need a place very rich in mana with fewer native residents, essentially a perfect sacrificial place. And unfortunately, Nahiri's home plane of Zendikar was kind of ideal. Magic stirred through the ley lines, essentially the world's magical veins, at an incredible rate. The Royal, a magical geological phenomenon, caused the plane to just change and evolve constantly, which led to very few permanent residents. So they got to work creating the perfect prison from this magical land. Nahiri shaped these massive stone hedrons from Zendikar's living earth. Then, with all his wisdom, Ugin etched them with powerful draconic runes, while Sorin, used some wizard blood stuff to balance the books or something. I'm not entirely certain about what he really provided here besides moral support and good looks, but he was there, I guess. So all 3 together, they created a vast network of ley lines and mana nodes, turning the entire plane itself into both bait and a cage. Then this Hedron network pulsed with magical energy, drawing the Eldrazi Titans closer and closer. And as the threat loomed, Nahiri warned Zendikar's inhabitants, humans, core, merfolk, elves, and some more, while the angels patrolled the skies in preparation as well. Now, when the Eldrazi finally arrived here, the sight was, as you can imagine, really freaking overwhelming. Ulamog, Kozilek, and Emrakul descended upon this plane like living disasters, except technically, they were really big, scary fingers to scale. And so the 3 planeswalkers made their last big stand at the final prison, a chamber deep in the mountains dubbed the Eye of Ugin. You might have heard of it. There, combining their immense powers, they finally activated the Hedron network. Across the entire plane, the stones shifted into alignment, forming a massive prison of mana and stone. And although Zendikar was scarred, it endured nonetheless. And only if 3 planeswalkers and Ugin's spirit flame are united in the Eye of Ugin would they be set free once again. Surely, something crazy like that could never happen, right? The Titans were sealed this way, and the planet would learn to survive in the shadow of this big prison that it had suddenly become. Legends of these Titans would take form in the gods of the merfolk and the core races, which is my favorite part of their entire lore. It's really cool to see how the peoples of the world kind of created their legends based on these events. Kosi and Talib are renditions of Kozilek, Emeria is based on Emrakul, and Ula is based on Emrakul. No, it's Ulamog, of course. Such a rad detail, and I heavily suggest reading The Lithomancer on the Magic the Gathering website if you actually want to see the dialogue and the unifying forces trapping the Titans for the first time. Absolutely worth the experience. The First Awakening. The prison that these 3 guys built held pretty strong, but as you can imagine, it wasn't perfect. Now, to be completely fair, there was no way of knowing how 3 divine beings beyond understanding would ever react to being sealed away in a cave by some big polyhedrons. All things considered, I'm actually kind of surprised it worked as well as it did for as long as it did. You see, Ulamog is super stinky, and so is his influence. The lingering presence of Ulamog began to corrupt the region of Akum on Zendikar the way that I corrupted the bathroom on a Sunday evening after those 3 dozen donuts finishing my tummy off. And those who settled near the unstable mountains for whatever reason, don't ask me why you would want to live there, but they fell under its subtle, maddening influence in a very cosmic horror move. I see you, Mr. Wizards of the Coast. I've read The Call of Cthulhu, you sinister fiends. As a result of big mogmogging, there was a cult formed devoted to the Mountain God. And over generations, their rituals unknowingly slowly weakened the Eldrazi prison. Though the Titans still remained bound, their broods began to once again seep into the world, unleashing true devastation across the plane. Particularly, my good old friend, Zuldog, the only named commander of Ulamog's brood. Fun little fact for you there. It caused a famine and messed up the entire land around it. But wait, there's more. The cultists themselves were transformed by the sickening might of the Eldrazi too. Only 12 cultists survived, and they became the first vampire blood chiefs, the origin of Zendikar's vampire race. And in such a metal way of introducing vampirism to the plane, these twisted servants of Ulamog had their bodies completely altered. They gained these red hook-like horns used by the Eldrazi to control them. Their past identities were completely erased, leaving only servitude. Now, luckily, in some foresight, Nahiri was actually stationed here waiting for some nonsense shenanigans to finally happen. It was kind of clear that it wasn't going to be super smooth all the way, so she called Sorin and Ugin, who ghosted her, and then she alone went and fixed up that prison really well. This actually severed the vampires from Ulamog's control. The vampires endured as a lasting reminder of the Eldrazi corruption, but that was that. Release the beasts. Everything was going pretty super good actually, until some sneaky business caused 3 planeswalkers and, oh no, Ugin's Ghostfire to somehow once again end up in the Eye of Ugin. Long story short here, Chandra had been manipulated into getting the Dragon Scroll, which contained the Ghostfire, and was convinced to go to the Eye of Ugin, and then my man, Sarkhan Vol, attacked Chandra. Conveniently and totally not schemed, Jace Beleren appears since he was hunting Chandra, and as you can see, the recipe for unleashing the Eldrazi was achieved. 3 powerful planeswalkers and the Ghostfire broke the seal on the Eldrazi and set in motion the release of the Eldrazi thousands of years after their sealing. So as the Eldrazi stirred once more, Zendikar itself began to warp. All of the dormant hedrons awakened across the plane, shifting into massive, unnatural structures that bend reality around them. And from these distortions, new generations of Eldrazi broods began to emerge. In short, lots of bugs everywhere, all at once. But unfortunately, thousands of years later, Nahiri was gone, and it was just Sorin Markov who remained on Zendikar. He of course knew what was going on, realized it was quite bad, and needed some help very desperately. So he reluctantly allied himself with the Elvish Druid and total beast of a planeswalker, Nissa Ravane, to contain the threat. However, Nissa is a Zendikari Druid. By the way, totally just learned she's a native of Zendikar. Anyways, Druids, if you didn't know, are all about nature and order and all that fun stuff. As a result, Nissa believed that the Eldrazi were not meant to be imprisoned to begin with. Very, PETA vibes, which are normally good, except for when you're talking about plain universe-devouring mega beasts from beyond the beyond, I personally think, but hey, just my opinion. So instead of following Sorin's plan of reinforcing the Hedron network and getting things back under control, Nissa used all of her nature's might to shatter the network's core, fully releasing the Titans instead. Hey, but luckily, just as Nissa had hoped, the Titans were actually super chill and just left peacefully. not. They were hungry and they immediately began to feast on everything. Sorin promptly gave up all hope since Nissa biffed it real hard, and he abandoned both Nissa and the plane, leaving Zendikar to face the consequences of the younger generation of planeswalkers. Oh, and also Emrakul just left. She just dipped and went to do some other stuff somewhere else. We'll get to it. Zendikar's Turmoil. With Zendikar on the brink of total and absolute cosmic annihilation, the planeswalkers defending Zendikar needed to do something. And that something was teaming up. So a united front was formed. Nissa Ravane rose to defend her home, joined by Chandra Nalaar, Gideon Jura, and Jace Beleren. In other words, the Gatewatch, right? They were joined by the merfolk mage Jorian, and their plan was pretty simple. Do the exact same thing that Ugin did before, but a little bit more violently. Basically, they intended to use the ley lines as a prison, forcing the Eldrazi's true essence into reality, where they could then be actually destroyed instead of just being contained. With help from Kiora, a powerful merfolk planeswalker who really likes octopuses, they lured both Ulamog and Kozilek into position, while Zendikar's defenders acted as bait, basically. Gideon held the front lines, shielding armies from the relentless swarms of their brood, while Kiora used her command of the seas to also crush and scatter any incoming brood on her end. However, once anchored, the Titans began to destabilize Zendikar itself, their immense presence threatening to merge the entire plane into their very being. Also, there was a whole thing with Obnixilis appearing, destroying the first prison and causing some pretty bad issues. And so, fearful of total annihilation, Kiora urged retreat, believing that the Eldrazi should just be released. Jace, however, refused, insisting that they finish what they started, and in that critical moment, Chandra and Nissa combined their powers, fire and nature, destruction and connection. Channeling Chandra's flames through Zendikar's ley lines, Nissa directed the energy straight into the Titans, destroying them forever. Or at least until they probably definitely will come back somehow. So, Zendikar was saved, but was just a shell of its former glory. And somewhere, far away in the multiverse, Ugin sensed their destruction and grew deeply, deeply troubled, warning that eliminating such ancient fundamental beings of existence could have some truly bad unforeseen consequences for the balance of the entire multiverse. That sounds like a set that I want to really see in the story soon. Please give us a cool Eldrazi, multiverse, unbalanced, crazy creature emerging set. Wizards! Emrakul, Plague of Innistrad. Okay, so remember when I said that Emrakul sort of just dipped? Well, it turns out that wasn't random at all. You see, Emrakul was following a signal left for her by none other than my girl, Nahiri. Woo! So surely one of the original good guys who sealed them away had a plan to actually defeat Emrakul, right? Right? Sort of? Maybe? No. Actually, no. You see, back during the first release when Nahiri sent out that signal and got ghosted by Sorin, she was, let's say, pretty pissed. So she confronted Sorin about that, and well, that interaction did not go so well. Sorin said that his Hell Vault, a massive prison, jammed her message, which actually was the truth, but Nahiri was not that happy with the truth and threatened to just straight up destroy Sorin. That went really poorly, and she ended up sealed inside of the Hell Vault itself. Then, the Hell Vault actually exploded, which you can learn all about in my Liliana video, because she plays a role in all of this too, a side effect of which was actually setting Nahiri free as well, on top of a demon, and also Avacyn, and there were a bunch of people and stuff in that thing. So, she dipped back to Zendikar and, well, saw the events of the Zendikar block that I just went over a few minutes ago, you remember? Basically, she was enraged seeing this and learned of all of Sorin's failures. So Nahiri manipulated the magical ley lines of Innistrad, Sorin's home plane, to summon Emrakul, who then tried to consume Innistrad, getting revenge for Zendikar's destruction by basically being like, well, if you mess up my plane, I'm gonna mess up yours. This, of course, twisted the mind of Innistrad's greatest guardian, the Archangel Avacyn, and then Sorin arrived to put her down peacefully. Basically, Avacyn went to a farm up north. Don't worry about it. And without its mighty angelic guardian, Innistrad was vulnerable to Emrakul's onslaught because, once you take away indestructible from everything, well, that's not good. Then things can be destroyed. So after devastating the great city of Thraben on Innistrad, Emrakul confronted the Gatewatch and Liliana Vess, overwhelming them with her psychic presence. Jace Beleren actually briefly communicated with a manifestation of Emrakul who described herself as incomplete and suggested that Innistrad should just accept her. Big please, right? Visions were forced into a lot of minds that day, as one can imagine, in the presence of the great manipulator Emrakul, and as the Gatewatch attempted to seal her away, Emrakul did something very unexpected. She just kind of allowed it to happen. At first, it had actually seemed like Tamio, the Moon Sage, Tamio, love ya, great video, you should check it out too, was actually successful in sealing Emrakul inside of Innistrad's moon in a very sick and amazing 11th hour play, but actually all was not quite as it seemed. After the great battle for Innistrad, Tamio actually revealed to Jace that Emrakul had possessed her and then forced Tamio to read a forbidden scroll, changing it and completing the ritual that would seal Emmy into Innistrad's moon. But what truly haunted Jace is that Emrakul told him this herself. In one of his visions during the battle, he was haunted by the chilling last words of Emrakul. This is all wrong. I'm incomplete, unfulfilled, and inchoate. There should be blossoms, not barren resentment. The soil was not receptive. It was not my time, not yet. Ooh, boy! That's pretty spooky stuff. And also where the story of the Eldrazi kind of leaves off. For now, in the story of the multiverse. Chilling and very ominous and kind of, like a little bit, teasing. I do expect to see Emrakul's return next time we go to Innistrad, but until then, if you want to see in even greater detail how her siblings, the other Titans, truly fell and were defeated, you should check out my full video here on Gideon Jura, who led the entire assault on them, which actually goes into the Zendikar block story in way greater detail. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. If you haven't yet, please leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment. It's annoying to ask, I know, but it really makes a massive difference for smaller channels like these and, helps them get pushed out a little bit more to other people. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.